It's concerning that New Yorkers don't seem to care about the effects of climate change on New York City. Often I wonder if New Yorkers are oblivious to the consequences of rising sea levels in their city, or if New Yorkers in fact do know but decide to ignore it. Either choice is very alarming. Look at how badly Hurricane Sandy affected New York. You would think New Yorkers would be more concerned about the threat of future flooding and how that could impact their lives. It's astonishing that people choose to forgive and forget Hurricane Sandy, which happened only 5 years ago. Back in 2012, on October 29th, when Hurricane Sandy hit, the subway stations flooded. The train service had to stop. The PATH train into New York had to halt service as well, not to mention halting service on suburban commuter lines into the city from New Jersey, Connecticut, and the greater New York area. On November 1st, limited subway services resumed. However, it was still extremely difficult for New Yorkers to commute to work, causing them to miss days, which cost them and the city time and money. It was an extremely frustrating time for every working person in the area. I thought it would be interesting to hear a psychologist's point of view about why New Yorkers actively choose to ignore climate change if they know the consequences it can cause.
Some reasons why I think people might not sort of change their behavior, so as to reduce the potential consequences and to sort of maybe reverse the effects of climate change, I think about it in two ways. One, on like an individual level, and then sort of in a group situation. So on an individual level, I think people, and I think a lot of us, I include myself, this might feel familiar. There's this kind of balance between immediate rewards or consequences and then long-term reward and consequences. So like when it comes to, let's say, for example, making the choice to recycle or not, right? And what impact that could potentially have long-term for climate change, either continuing to get worse or potentially kind of reversing and getting better. I think a lot of times we as humans are thinking more short-term, right? So in the short term, if it requires extra effort or extra time, and if we think, okay, but what if I don't get to see the rewards of the effort that I do now, right? Maybe I won't see the effect of my choice. Maybe my children won't even see the effect of my choice. Maybe my grandchildren won't even see. So is it even worth putting in the time and effort now? So there's that kind of part of it, I think. And I think from sort of like a psychological perspective too, like what we were talking about even with like the marshmallow study, for example, with the little children having the option to either get that reward right now or hold off until later, right? It's kind of like this instant gratification, like, do I use my time to recycle, or can I just kind of get through things quickly? Because again, I'm probably not going to feel the consequences. It's not going to happen until generations from now. Or can I put in the time now, knowing that in the future, long term, there will be sort of the reward for the work that I do now. So that was what I was thinking, sort of like on an individual level. But I think when we think about sort of human behavior in a larger sort of context, in groups, for example, I've had this conversation with people before. And I'm specifically thinking about recycling because that's something for me that I've always made an effort to do, but I have friends and family members who couldn't be bothered with it. So when it comes to groups, I think we feel like how can my actions, when there's so many people who contribute to this, if I change the way I do things, if I start recycling, how do I know that that's really going to make an impact if everyone else in my family doesn't recycle, right? So there's this kind of like social influence to kind of like, well, I'll just kind of go with what everyone else is doing. Because again, it's like if I'm not really able to see or reap the benefits of my choices now, what's the point? And I think, and at our core, we can be very sort of selfish, self-focused beings. And again, like if the punishment, if we're not going to feel the punishment, right? You know, the hurricanes are happening in other parts of the world, so it doesn't really affect me, or doesn't really affect the people that, you know, my sort of like immediate family or the people that are important to me, then maybe it's not as important. You know, with the recent sort of shift in the presidency and you know, sort of shifting discussions about climate change, I think I've been shocked and surprised and disappointed by the number of people who don't seem to think it's a real issue, that it's a, you know, that it is something that's occurring and has consequences for all of us, even if we don't feel it in a direct way. With those of us who believe that it's a real thing that's occurring, but we still don't change how we live our lives and sort of the carbon footprint that we might be leaving or creating in the planet. Yeah, like how do we make sense of that?
I hope that New Yorkers will be inspired to act on climate change when seeing other people like Mayor Bill de Blasio proposing things to help fight climate change. Even small changes in our daily lives can make a huge impact in helping to reduce New York City's carbon footprint. If we want to continue to live in New York City, we have to act now. We can't wait for another natural disaster to start doing something.